At issue tonight, question 5. Should the minimum wage be raised for tipped workers?
It's a fair thing to do for workers. Workers deserve a raise. No one deserves less than $15 an hour.
I could lay off staff. I could raise my prices. If question 5 were to pass, these are hard choices that we have to make.
Both sides serve up their arguments. Plus, who will be New Hampshire's next governor?
There's a lot on the line this election. The contrast is really stark.
Both candidates make their cases. At issue, Decision 2024 starts now.
Good Thursday evening and welcome to another live edition of At Issue. I'm Corey Smith.
And I'm Sue O'Connell. Just 5 days until the voting ends and the counting starts. In Massachusetts, tomorrow is the final day for in-person early voting.
New Hampshire voters will head to the polls Tuesday to elect their next governor. 2 women are facing off for the job, Democrat Joyce Craig and Republican Kelly Ayotte. Chances are you've heard the campaign ads for this race. Well, Joyce Craig's going to be in studio with us to talk about the tone and tenor of this contest.
But we're going to start with question 5 on the Massachusetts ballot. It asks voters to weigh in on whether the state should raise the minimum wage for tip workers.
It's an initiative that has been met with major pushback by many within the restaurant industry. We're going to speak to advocates for yes and no in a minute. But first, NBC 10's Bianca Beltran explains the question.
In Massachusetts, the minimum wage for tipped workers is $6.75, provided that tips bring them up to at least $15 an hour. If tips don't make up the difference, their employers are required to. Question 5 aims to phase out that tipped minimum wage by gradually increasing the minimum hourly wage over 5 years. Waitstaff could still collect tips, but if an employer pays at least the state minimum wage, they would be allowed to pool and share those tips with non-tipped workers. Circus Cooperative Cafe operates on a similar model. Worker owner candidate Miles Taylor supports question 5 because he says it makes wages more predictable and could help equalize pay between customer-facing workers and those in the kitchen.
A lot of folks in back of house are our most vulnerable citizens right now. It's folks that don't have a firm grip on English enough to be able to work server positions. Making sure that they have a better wage is really, really important to me because I've witnessed that disparity over and over again everywhere I've worked.
There you go. You're welcome.
The option to pool tips has been met with backlash from many servers and bartenders like Tracy Mota, who also believes customers will spend or tip less.
Well, if you calculate, okay, so minimum wage is $15, multiply with, let's just say 40 hours, that's $600. That's pretty much, I make a lot more than that. I mean, so that's a pay decrease for me. Restaurant owner Neil Levine estimates his annual operating costs would increase by $189,000 a year for payroll.
I could take a $189,000 loss. I could lay off staff. I could raise my prices. If question 5 were to pass, these are hard choices that we have to make.
Estefania Galvis is part of the One Fair Wage campaign, which is advocating for question 5 and similar ballot initiatives across the country. She argues in the long term, by paying higher wages, businesses could see reduced turnover.
This is going to really help our economy thrive and our workers stay longer in their jobs and be able to be left out of poverty.
So voting yes on question 5 requires employers to cover the full minimum wage for tipped workers and allows them to pool tips, whereas voting no on question 5 maintains the current system where tips cover part of the minimum wage. Reporting in the newsroom, I'm Bianca Beltran, NBC 10 Boston.
All right, Bianca, thank you. As you mentioned, we're going to talk to advocates on both sides of this question, and we'll start with the yes side. Shannon Liss-Riordan is an attorney who has represented tipped workers, low-wage workers, and employees misclassified as independent contractors in a number of class action lawsuits. Shannon, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate the time. I just mentioned your lengthy resume there, but you're not a restaurant owner. You don't work in a restaurant. Like me and Sue, though, I'm sure you go to restaurants. You enjoy dining out. Why be in this fight? Why are you in this fight?
Well, I have been representing restaurant workers for more than 20 years, so I know a little something about what's going on in those restaurants and the economics of it. And it's really just disgraceful that we still have this 2-tiered wage system where restaurant workers are paid less than minimum wage. This 2-tiered system is a vestige of slavery. After slavery ended, slaves were working for tips. And ultimately, when the minimum wage laws were passed as part of the New Deal, there was this exception created for tipped workers where they could be paid less than the full minimum wage. A number of states have gotten rid of this two-tiered system. It's time for Massachusetts to get rid of this two-tiered system.
Shannon, Governor Healey, she was our attorney general at one point. She opposes question 5. She says because it will lower the compensation of servers across the state, not raise it. Why is she wrong?
Yeah, that's just absolutely not right. Voting yes on question 5 will give workers a pay raise. It won't change anything about tip pooling. Pooling now is allowed among restaurants. The one difference is that back of the house may now be included in the tip pool, but I think that's a fair trade-off because the reason why back of the house have not been included in the tip pool is just because of the way the system worked. The idea is that restaurant owners were supposed to pay them more. It hasn't really worked out that way. So I think it is a fair trade-off that tips can be shared among all non-managerial workers and everyone in the restaurant industry will get a pay raise.
Then what do you say to those restaurant owners who say, okay, if I'm going to have to do this, it means raising my prices, which could mean to a loss of customers, which could threaten my business. To maybe stay afloat, I have to cut staff. What do you make of the business owner side of this who say, if you vote yes here, this is going to change how much you pay for a meal and how many people I can hire?
This is the exact same argument that we hear from business owners whenever there's an attempt to raise the minimum wage. Oh, it's going to be too expensive. Oh, costs are going to go up. These are tired arguments. In Massachusetts, if you run a business, you can afford to pay your workers the full minimum wage. I just don't buy it.
Even in an industry where the margins are razor thin, I mean, I understand, and I have heard folks talk about, you raise the minimum wage, it's gonna cripple my business, but we know that the restaurant industry operates on razor thin margins.
7 states don't have a tipped minimum wage. One of them is California. We know well that the restaurant industry is alive and well in California. Those kinds of arguments get made. Michigan recently got rid of its two-tiered system for paying tipped workers less. We can do it in Massachusetts. We can survive this way, and we really do need to get rid of this two-tiered system, which hurts workers of color, particularly. It hurts women. The idea that employees are going to make up the rest of the minimum wage through their tips is just so prone to problems. And I've spent so much of my career addressing those problems. Employers don't make up the tips. There are plenty of workers in the restaurant industry who aren't really making full minimum wage. They need this in order to ensure that they're getting a living wage, not even really a living wage, but closer to a living wage to support themselves and their families.
Shannon, quickly, I'm no fan of our lawmakers and the slow pace that they work at, but shouldn't they be dealing with this instead of voters?
Well, I mean, that's the whole point of ballot initiatives, is that the legislature doesn't always act on these things. There's been a long time attempt to try to get this passed, and it's the restaurant owners who oppose it. The National Restaurant Association is the main opponent of question 5. It is employers who are against it. We've heard of many employers who are requiring employees to wear shirts and pins saying no on 5, and the employees don't feel like they can speak out about it. It's the employers who are trying to stop question 5.
All right, Shannon Liss Reardon here to advocate for the yes on question 5 side. Shannon, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now let's talk to someone on the no on question 5 side. Chris, say your last name for me.
Cohan.
Thank you. Chris Cohan. I get it wrong every time I talk about you and with you. You're with Shawmut Strategies Group and the Committee to Protect Tips. Chris, you just heard what Shannon had to say. Where do you disagree on it?
Look, the bottom line is the people advocating most against question 5 are the very servers and bartenders she says they represent. Over 90% of servers and bartenders polled say they're opposed to this. And their accusations that people are being forced to wear materials is absolutely ludicrous. All you have to do is look at their campaign finance reports to understand this group has been pushing this for 10 years. And in 10 years, they haven't been able to find a single server or bartender to make a contribution to the Yes campaign. We have nearly 100.
Speaking of that survey, who took that survey? Who commissioned that survey, and who were asked questions about it?
We specifically asked servers and bartenders. It's one of the first things I did when we came onto the campaign, and we hired a polling company to do it.
Did you ask?
We asked servers and bartenders across the state of all demographics, races, financial backgrounds, and all you have to do is go into a restaurant right now. You know, these people aren't just talking about the daily specials and reading them off. They know these talking points that we're talking about by heart because they're passionate about being opposed to Question 5. They weren't asked by the group that's pushing this to put this forward, and the actions show it. They're not donating. They're not volunteering. When you see visibilities happening, they're all no on 5. The people that support this are servers and bartenders. They're adamantly opposed to it, and that's why the numbers are swinging so wildly in our favor.
But what about the folks who are back of house staff who would, one would argue, stand to benefit from this, from things like pool tips? Did they take this survey, the folks who aren't tip workers but who are working in these restaurants?
No, this was specifically tipped workers because they're the ones most impacted by this. But I have done pre-meals in hundreds of restaurants across the state, and I haven't come across back of the house staff that actually want this either. They understand that if this were to pass, people would be laid off, fewer people would be coming into restaurants, and they would get fewer shifts. It would make their life more unpredictable as well.
Chris, you asked Amherst put out a policy briefing on this question and found a number of interesting things. In states where there is no sub-minimum wage, tip workers earn about 10 to 20% more in wages and tips than tip workers in states with sub-minimum wages like Massachusetts. A yes vote would likely result in a cost increase for the average Massachusetts restaurant of about 2% of its sale revenue. So if this passes, would it really cause restaurants to have to fire staff or even worse, have to close?
It absolutely would. And we're not talking about theory here. There are places where this is happening in reality. And unfortunately, the UMass study belongs in a trash bin. Because if you look at California, they rank consistently by Toast and Cornell University as the worst tipping state in the country. Maine passed this 6 years ago, and it lasted less than a year before their legislature overturned it. And in Washington, D.C. right now, it's been in place for just over a year, and over 10% of the workforce has lost their jobs or left because they're making significantly less than they were just over a year ago.
So, Chris, that same UMass Amherst study found that despite making up just 5.6% of employment in Massachusetts in 2023, the restaurant and hotel industry had the highest number of complaints regarding tips, minimum wage, and non-payment of wages. Can you argue that a yes vote on here makes this industry better and fairer?
No, if anything, it proves that the system's working. The Attorney General, our former Attorney General, who you already mentioned, has endorsed our campaign, Governor Healy, has said the system is working. There is absolutely no place for sexual harassment or wage theft in our society in any way, shape, or form. We already have laws in place that are there to protect people for it. And anyone on my committee that I'm working with is adamantly opposed to what they're talking about. If sexual harassment happens, if wage theft happens, we're a triple damages state. And frankly, the lady you had, Shannon Liss-Riordan, speaking, has made a great career out of those exact lawsuits. This system works the way it is now, and that's why the governor came out in favor of ours.
All right, Chris Cohane with Shawman Strategies and the Committee to Protect Tips. Thank you for giving us your side of things, Chris. We really do appreciate the time.
Appreciate it. Good to see you.
All right, for more on the ballot questions, you can scan the QR code that you're seeing on your screen right there. That'll take you to our website, NBC10Boston.com, where we have a comprehensive guide on all 5 questions. All right, up next, the campaign that is all over the airwaves, the New Hampshire's governor's race.
The race between Joyce Craig and Kelly Ayotte has featured a ton of negative advertising. The Democrat joins us to make her case next.
All right, welcome back to the live edition of At Issue. You know, there's an important contest in New Hampshire that we're watching. It's the governor's race. Governor
Chris Sununu decided not to run for a 5th term, so Republican Kelly Ayotte and Democrat Joyce Craig are facing off to succeed him.
NBC 10's Michael Rosenfield reports the race has become particularly nasty and negative.
As the seasons change and the autumn colors unfold in New Hampshire, one thing remains consistent in the Granite State: another election that's too close to call. In the race for New Hampshire governor, it's Republican Kelly Ayotte against Democrat Joyce Craig.
There's a lot on the line this election, and the contrast is really stark.
Ayotte is a former U.S. Senator from New Hampshire. Craig is the former mayor of Manchester. Both candidates have attacked the other relentlessly.
Joyce Craig, she's been campaigning in New Hampshire with the governor of Massachusetts higher taxes, higher crime, less personal freedom. That's not what New Hampshire stands for.
We cannot trust what Kelly Ayotte is saying, and it's really important that voters look at her record and how she's voted in the past, because that's an indication of where she'll be as governor.
Craig has taken heat from Ayotte for the spike in drug use and homelessness in downtown Manchester under Craig's watch.
Kelly Ayotte has not been around for 8 years, and I'm not sure that she is one who should be making the judgment call on what worked and what didn't. We made progress.
Ayotte has been criticized for sitting on corporate boards and raking in money, but she says that private sector experience will make her a more effective governor.
This is experience that is going to help me serve the people of New Hampshire. I can go and recruit great businesses to New Hampshire, selling these businesses on our great tax model.
Reproductive rights has been a key battleground issue. Craig says New Hampshire's law allowing abortions up to 24 weeks would be in jeopardy under Ayotte.
I support the law. I will not change it as governor. In fact, I've said if anything more restrictive is sent to my desk, I will veto it.
She's trying to step away from her 20 years of attacking reproductive freedom. You can't trust what she's saying.
Taxes, another hot topic on the campaign trail. Both have promised no sales or income tax.
I know that we shouldn't be passing on costs to families, especially when things cost more.
But Craig plans to keep in place a tax on interest and dividends that's set to expire.
We should not be giving tax breaks to multimillionaires like Kelly Ayotte.
Political experts say this could be the most competitive governor's race in the entire country. The latest polls show this race to be neck and neck, a toss-up. In Laconia, New Hampshire, Michael Rosenfield, NBC 10 Boston.
All right, we have reached out to Kelly Ayotte to join us here on At Issue repeatedly, but she has not yet accepted. Her campaign does know that an invitation to join us tomorrow, Sunday, or Monday night remains open.
Democrat Joyce Craig, though, did join us today, and we started our conversation talking about her record.
Joyce Craig, thank you so much for being here on That Issue. We appreciate it.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
All right. Before you won the Democratic nomination, the Ayotte campaign was attacking your record as mayor of Manchester. I've only been there a few times. Lovely place. But judging by those ads, you would think it was this sort of hellscape. Feces in the street, a homeless problem, murder. What does she get wrong about your tenure in Manchester?
So she gets everything wrong about the city of Manchester. And I just have to say, you know, for someone running for governor, we should be focused on lifting every single community up. And it is unacceptable that she is attacking Manchester. We're a vibrant community. You know, I've worked really hard as mayor of Manchester to ensure that we are doing so much better. When I was mayor, we were the only municipality to win one of the Build Back Better Regional Challenge grants. We have 7,000 new jobs coming into the city. Our mill yard is booming with biomanufacturing right now. We have a vibrant downtown, arts, entertainment. People are looking to move there and to work there and to have fun there. So, you know, I celebrate all of the progress that we've made in Manchester. Sure, we have more work to do, but her depiction is not at all what our city is.
In one of those ads, one of her supporters basically accused you of caring about the unhoused more than you actually cared about your own constituents in Manchester. When you look back at your approach dealing with the homelessness issue, would you have done anything differently, or do you stand behind your record in that space?
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I'm running for governor is because we got very little support from the state in addressing this statewide, nationwide challenge. And, you know, as governor, I'll be focused on helping our local communities deal with this challenge. In Manchester, we opened up the first city-run, city-funded shelter. We got an engagement center opened with services under one roof. I brought the National Alliance to End Homelessness into the city of Manchester to make sure our programs are best meeting the needs of individuals. We saw a 60% decrease in encampments, a 20% decrease in opioid overdoses, and a 40% decrease in crime in Manchester. We all worked hard. It was city departments, it was the community, it was businesses to address this challenge. I know what it takes, and as governor, I am focused on making sure our local communities have the support from Concord that they need to help this problem.
So as a lifelong Massachusetts resident, every time time my parents would talk about New Hampshire, I'd hear the word taxes. I thought for a long time they were intertwined in one way or another because taxes are so important to folks in New Hampshire. You've promised to lower property taxes, veto any sales or income taxes. You've talked about restoring the interest and dividends tax that Republicans had phased out a few years ago. Why do you think right now that's the best move for the state of New Hampshire?
I'm traveling around the state of New Hampshire talking to businesses and residents, and they're talking to me about how costs are increasing. So as governor, I'm focused on everything we can do to decrease costs for our hardworking families. Right now, there is a massive tax break for millionaires in New Hampshire. My opponent, Kelly Ayotte, will benefit from that, and she supports that. It's wrong. As governor, I'm focused on the middle class, hardworking families, decreasing their property taxes, decreasing our energy costs, and doing everything that we can to save them money.
Kelly Ayotte, in one of her ads, says she wants to keep New Hampshire on the Sununu path. Anytime he's come here to talk to us, he is not one to be shy about how great things are going in New Hampshire. And in many respects, he's not wrong. Why deviate from that path that when the state is doing well economically? And what would you change about the quote-unquote Sununu path?
Sure. So right now, our state has a serious housing crisis. We need 60,000 housing units by 2030. We have no time to wait. We need to build so our hardworking families, young people, and seniors can afford to live in New Hampshire. We need to address that housing crisis. In Manchester, I made progress on that. We now have 2,000 housing units in development. Right now in New Hampshire, reproductive freedom is under attack. We're the only state in New England that hasn't codified access to abortion. And my opponent is trying to rewrite her 20 years of attacking reproductive freedom. You know, she has voted for a national abortion ban. She's voted to defund Planned Parenthood and has said, if elected, she would continue to defund Planned Parenthood. She is the person who shepherded Neil Gorsuch through the Supreme Court process and then celebrated when Roe v. Wade was overturned. We need to both protect and expand reproductive health care in New Hampshire, and that's what I'm focused on as governor. And then lastly, I'll just say public schools are under attack as well. Our state has not been adequately funding public education. We have a dangerous voucher scheme that's siphoning millions of dollars away from our public schools and putting it toward private and religious schools. That's unacceptable. My focus will be to fund public education and ensure we have an education commissioner who is focused on strengthening our public schools, while my opponent wants to just make this voucher scheme universal. It would decimate public education and significantly increase property taxes.
How would you pay for that?
Would you raise taxes?
Would you raise taxes?
No, so we would do away with this voucher program and put the money back into our public schools.
It's been a heated campaign season, lots of attacks ads. As we finish up here, how have you balanced criticizing your opponent without going too negative, or are you going negative enough?
No, so we're focusing on the issues that matter most to residents, right? Making sure we're tackling the housing crisis, strengthening our public schools, decreasing energy costs and other costs for hardworking families, and protecting reproductive freedom. While we're focused on the issues, we're making sure that residents understand where my opponent stands on these issues. So when it comes to housing, she's actually profiting off of this housing crisis. She sits on the board of Blackstone. She's making millions of dollars because they buy up properties, jack up rents, and push people out of their homes. We can't trust Kelly Ayotte when it comes to addressing issues in New Hampshire.
Last thing, the housing question and transportation are intertwined. For sure, we see that here in Massachusetts, of course. Expanding commuter rail, connecting Nashville, Manchester to Boston. Would you need federal help to do that? And can you make that happen in perhaps a split Congress?
Absolutely. We need to try to make that happen. As mayor, I worked closely with the mayor of Nashua. Passenger rail is critical to businesses in our state and to residents. The connection, working together with Massachusetts and the other states in New England is really important. And having that transportation is something that I am focused on making sure we do. And yes, tapping into the federal funds right now. If we don't get this done now, we'll never get it done.
That was Joyce Craig. Again, we have an open invitation to Kelly Ayotte to come on our show anytime between now and Election Day. Sue, real quick, what can that race tell us about perhaps the race nationally? I mean, what if Joyce Craig beats Kelly Ayotte? What would that say?
Well, what it says is that abortion is an important issue for people across the country. In New Hampshire, it also might say people go in, and if Trump won New Hampshire and Craig wins, they're happy splitting the ballot or the other way around. So people are going to make some decisions, especially the undecideds as they go into these ballots.
All right, we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. We're back here at 7:30 tomorrow night. Matt Pritchard is going to be up in New Hampshire, where former President Bill Clinton will be campaigning.
Plus, a closer look at the spread of misinformation tied to this election, who's behind it, and which groups are working to make you aware of it.
Thanks again for joining us. I'm Corey Smith.
I'm Sue O'Connell. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7:30.